video editing, what you're actually doing is telling a story. And stories are broken into sections. You've usually got an introduction where you meet the characters, and then you've got a conflict that needs to be solved, and then you have the solution to the conflict, and then you have the final goodbyes, and then you have a title sequence. And things tend to get broken down into manageable chunks, and the bigger a video is, the more important it is to be able to break things into manageable chunks. Now in Sony Vegas you can have a timeline with lots and lots of information on it, but sometimes it's much easier if you can break it into individual projects, so the introduction, the conflict, the resolution, the goodbyes, and then bring in those individual timelines and edit them separately in your final project. So I'm going to pretend that this is my introduction section here. And I'm going to bring in another project. Here we go, one that says progress with markers that we created earlier. And I'm going to take that one and I'm going to drop it in and I'm going to let go. And it's come in here with a file that I was playing with earlier. Okay, so I've made some changes since last we saw it, but you can see it's the one with markers in. And in fact, I'm going to put another marker in here. I'm going to put present end. Okay, and I'm going to bring another one in. I'm going to bring in, say, I don't know, progress 1 and drop that in at the end as well. Okay, now it might take a moment to render through. These ones are rendering through fairly quickly because I've used them before recently. Okay, they're the same sort of thing, but they are project files. So these are actual events, actual clips, whereas these are different project files. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my start menu, and you could navigate to Sony and find Vegas Pro, but I've actually pinned mine to the start menu. Sony Vegas Pro, click on that and actually start it up. And a second version of Vegas Pro is going to open. And you can have multiple versions of Vegas Pro open. It doesn't just happen to be one, you can have lots of different versions open. So I'm going to open this version up. And I'm going to navigate to that project, which is just here. And I'm going to double click to open the project. Okay, I'm not taking it as an asset to the timeline. I'm actually opening the real project itself. And give it a moment to open. And there is the project. Now I want to get rid of these markers. They're driving me mad. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the end one here. And I'm going to hold the shift key and I'm going to select the first one. And I'm going to right click on them and choose delete. All the markers are gone. Right, so markers have gone. And I'm going to get rid of this clip because I don't really want that clip in there anymore. And I think I want to cut the audio back to here. So I'm going to select the audio clip. So just take that to that point and S to slice it. Get rid of that bit and delete. Now, that will not presently update in the other one that I'm working on. Nothing's happening. I've still got the markers. Nothing's updating. However, if I now go back to my timeline and I click save, it's saved the project. Okay, so that project is now saved. Now I'm going to go back to my other version and it's going to come up with a dialog box in a moment. Here it is, and it's rendering the file. It's going through. Now what's happened is it's not actually shortened the clip. It's got rid of all the markers, but it's not shortened the clip. And if I pull through, notice this is this sort of orangey line here. When I go to the end of the orange line, what I get is actually what's at the beginning of my clip brought back in again. It's kind of looping it through. So what I need to do is actually trim back to that point. And I'm going to trim it back. And I've got my ripple edit option selected. So now I've got rid of all the bits and pieces and I know where I had to go back to, and you can see where the trim has taken place. So it doesn't auto ripple it, but it does show you that you can edit things and get rid of them. So let's add something back into that one. So I'm going to go back to the markers. Here's markers. And I'm going to add that picture back in again of the girls in the boat. So drag that down to my timeline. Okay, I'm not going to worry about the audio. I'm just going to add that part in. Right, that's now been brought in. And I'm going to save it again. File save. Okay, so that's been saved. Definitely been saved. Now I'm going to go back to my other version. And I'm going to wait a moment. And it's going to render it. So it's giving it a moment. It's going to go through the render. And it's completed. But what I can't see is the extra that's been added in. Okay, so the extra is there, but I can't see it. So what I need to do is if I pull this clip over. So if I pull this clip over, I can't see anything there. But when I start trimming this one out, I can trim to the point where I get that orange line again. I'm actually going to delete this marker because it's going to get a bit in the way. So I'm going to now click and pull that through, and you can see I've got the orange line again telling me what's going on. So if I go back to the orange line, I've got nothing but the girls playing and their speedboat to the end of that clip, and now I can just put that clip back in place. So you can have multiple project files on your timeline to organize your footage, but bear in mind that if you change its length, you will need to go back to your final file, find out where the transition took place, which is very helpfully given you with that lovely orange line, and then trim out accordingly to solve the problem. And that's the way that you can have multiple versions of Sony Vegas open at the same time and work on different parts of your project and get them all right. And then what you really do at the end is you do File New, Brand New File, and once you've got the new file, you would actually bring in nothing but project files to the final version. So the first project file would be the introduction, the second project file would be the conflict, the third project file would be the resolution, and the end result would be one item with lots of project files in, which if you need to go back and edit, you can go back and edit. But otherwise, that would be your final version of your project. And you end up with your project as being a series of Vegas files. But occasionally you must bear in mind that things can go wrong. So obviously when I'm doing this, an error has occurred during my operations. Some streams in the media file could not be opened. I'm going to click OK. That's fine. And sometimes that's just the way it happens. But you bring all these bits and pieces in, it would end up being a series of files. Hopefully, I suspect this one's got some linked media that's been moved around is what's actually happened and why we've got a problem. I've renamed things in one project but not renamed them in the other, and that's what's caused the problem. But you end up with 4 files or 5 files that you can still go back and edit as you wish in different open versions of Vegas, but a far more manageable solution. Because rather than having one massive timeline that you're forever scrolling and backwards between, you're just going in and editing the appropriate bits. And if you make changes, Vegas will tell you with that orange line exactly where that new transition point is. I hope you found this useful. My name's Andrew Devis.